Today's mini chat is about home care packages, and we've got Kevin Smith on the call from Pension Services. Hey, Kevin, how you going?
Good, Simon. How are you?
Awesome. And yeah, look, you're an expert in all things Centrelink, home care, aged care. So I thought great chance to have a chat and pick your brain on a few important things. And quite a few of our clients are always wondering how these work, or are in the system, or soon to be in the system, or they might have parents that elderly parents, etc. So just thought we'd have a bit of a chat about what home care packages are. So really over to you. If we start with that, could you tell us a little bit about what is a home care package?
Yeah, look, Simon, it's a great question, and what we find is the government's, I guess, pushing, and I guess the market's pushing as well, that aging in place at home is probably the desired outcome. 15, 20 years ago, it was more as you got older, maybe we'll go into a lifestyle village or we'll go into aged care and we'll get the support and services we need here. But it's obviously fairly expensive to provide those services.
Yeah.
So the government's put a big push into, I guess, aging in place. And that's what a lot of people want to do. They've been in the house, and depending on the client, they might have been in the house for 20 or 30 years. They want to stay there. So what the government's really done is they've sort of given, there's 4 or 5 levels, depending on how you look at it, of sort of support to stay at home. And really what these are to do is they're to try and, provide maybe personal care, some support services, or some clinical care or home modifications for clients. So it involves things like, personal care, and, I often talk about this as the hard one, but in the later years, it might be helping with showering or helping getting dressed. But other support services can be just somebody to come in and do some cleaning. Once a fortnight, do the hard cleaning that gets a little bit harder when you're older, the bathrooms, the toilets, and bits and pieces like that. Correct. Or put in some grab rails and bits and pieces so that you can shower by yourself. So they're flexible to a degree, the packages. And the funding really, it can be quite generous, So when we talk home care packages, I guess specifically, they range from anything from about $14,500 a year worth of funding up to about $64,000 a year on the highest level of funding per person per year. So it is quite a lot of money to use to try and stay at home as long as you can.
Brilliant. Yeah, that sounds like a great concept. In my experience with clients over the years, 15 odd years of doing this, there's very few that voluntarily want to go into aged care, I must say. So this sounds like a great initiative. And so on that note, who are they for? How does that work? Eligibility, etc. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so eligibility is generally from sort of pension age, so you're 67 and above. We do find there's a bit of an overlap to a degree with clients that are already on NDIS. And you can't have both because it's almost double dipping, I guess is probably the politically incorrect term to use. But if you're on NDIS, we generally say to clients, try and stay on NDIS.
Okay. But otherwise, in general, pension age is the starting point.
A home care package, yeah, correct. And essentially what has to happen is you get assessed. So there'd be a medical assessment done to see what sort of help you potentially need. And one of the traps here is we try and say if somebody's getting assessed for these home care packages, we try and say, look, have a support person there with you. So maybe have your daughter or son or whoever it is that's helping you, and don't do the mad rush. I've seen that a number of times where clients, elderly clients who do need the help, and we know they need the help, but all of a sudden the wife's gone around, cleaned everything, made everything pristine, made the scones, made the tea and coffee, and the assessors come in and says, well, you're coping fine, whereas any other day of the week, they might struggle. Correct. And obviously the desired outcome is that then they don't get the funding that they need. They
ironic,
might not
isn't
get
it?
the package that it is. So they try and, I guess, overcompensate to the degree of what they can and can't do.
Fair enough. That's a good point. And so, that's a good example. You mentioned sort of last minute rush and the kids jumping in and trying to get things moving for mum or dad if they're starting to struggle. Timing wise, how does that work? Like, what would you recommend when people start, taking action? Tell us about that.
Yeah. It probably comes down to individuals and their health concerns is probably the number one thing. If mobility is becoming a bit of an issue, then, there's a couple of different options. So there's things like the Commonwealth Home Support Package, which is sometimes run by local councils, some independent providers as well. But they might just provide, cleaning once a fortnight, and they might do some gardening. So they might turn around and do some gardening or bits and pieces like that. And they can be a nice little entry and a nice little, hey, here's some baseline services to stay at home. You don't need any personal care. You don't need any major modifications. It's just, hey, we'll get somebody to help you with cleaning the gutters, doing some basic gardening and some basic cleaning. They can be a good entry point if you're finding mum or dad struggling, or if husband and wife are struggling. From there, it probably starts ramping up into proper, true home care packages. And they go through level 1 to level 4. And all that means is the amount of funding that somebody's actually going to get. So I think a level 1 package is about 14,366, which is just basic needs. So that's the amount of funding you get for a year. And then it increases to about 23,43, and then you finally cap out at about 64,000. The good thing with these, and what I often sometimes say to clients, is because clients do make a sort of co-payment, depending on who they get to manage the home care package for them, because they need somebody to provide it. They might not charge that. They might just take it straight off the top, but generally they might pay $10 a day for the home care package. But sometimes I'll say, look, if you're having trouble with mobility, let's just start the home care package and get somebody in to do the gardening and do the cleaning. And it might just be very basic stuff, but at least you're in the system.
Great.
Because then if something does happen, we can sort of ramp those services up, or it's easy to get correct, or it's easy to get reassessed by a provider and say, hey, look, I've had a fall. This has happened. That's happened. I need more help. You're already in the system. We can maybe use what budget you've already got, throw that at it problem while we wait for the next package to come through.
Okay. And does that require another assessment in that situation?
Correct. And the provider might do that for you. But the other thing it often involves as well is that if you're on one of these low-level packages, you might already be approved for respite. So if somebody does have a significant fall or, dramatically declines, then we've got the ability to put somebody into an aged care facility maybe for 2 weeks to give the carer a bit of a break. The big thing we find with home care packages and aging in general is we find that, if it's husband and wife or partners, whatever it is, we find that one might be sicker than the other and is doing a lot of heavy lifting. And it's obviously fairly draining. You're getting older yourself, and then you've got that sort of carer's fatigue of I'm helping look after my husband, my wife, whoever it is, and struggling with that as well. So sometimes that respite is just, I need a break.
Recharge a bit.
I had a client in last week, and we were talking. She's going through the process of her husband's going into residential aged care, and she's like, I just haven't had a break in 3.5 years.
Wow.
And it's getting harder and harder. And he's not the person I know he is, because he's got some cognitive issues. And sometimes you need to sort of put the oxygen mask on first and look after yourself before you look after somebody else.
Yeah, good analogy. And I guess, look, there's, it sounds like there's a huge amount of moving parts, a lot of emotional things going on. As advisors, I guess we focus on the things that we have control over. And in your experience, would you have a couple of, top 3 tips for trying to make that process smoother? What would you say on that front?
Yeah, so a couple of things are probably start the process maybe a little bit earlier than what you think you need it. And that's why I sort of give the analogy of the gardening and cleaning, because sometimes I see it where somebody's getting discharged from hospital after a fall, and all of a sudden we're waiting for a level 4 package, and the level 4 package can be 12 months waiting period before that actually kicks in. So you can imagine the pressure that's putting somebody under to do that. So that's probably one. The other one is if they are on an income support payment, so on an age pension or something like that, making sure their details are up to date. So making sure that their Centrelink stuff's up to date, because that affects how they're charged. That, you know, some people will pay a means tested fee, and if they're not, then they've got to get the paperwork done. So we find a number of families that don't do the financial assessment, and what ends up happening is they end up paying, I think the maximum fee for a home care package is about $35 a day, right? So all of a sudden they're like, I don't understand why I'm paying so much. The provider said I should only be paying $10 or $17 a day, and I'm getting charged $35. And generally we find that people have got bogged down in the 25 pages or whatever it is of Centrelink paperwork to get it done.
They don't make it easy, do they?
No. So and the other thing that I probably do say to clients is, you know, if you're going down the home care package side of things, then have a look and see if there's any other benefits you're eligible for. So sometimes, you know, self-funded retiree that's not eligible for any Centrelink, are they eligible for a Commonwealth Seniors Healthcare Card? You know, have they looked at that? October last year, they sort of rejigged the numbers, and so it's a lot more generous. So are they eligible for that? Are they eligible for a carer's allowance? You know, carer's allowance isn't much, but, you know, an extra $145 a fortnight may just pay for the basic daily care fee for the home care package. You know, you're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, but it's a net neutral cost to yourself.
Makes sense.
So they're probably the main tips.
Okay, yeah, great. And then, you know, challenges and roadblocks, I guess, anything that sort of crops up a lot, you know, the repeat mistakes.
Probably the biggest challenge with home care packages at the moment is staffing. You know, and it's the same. It's the same with aged care. You know, it's all good to get the package, but then you've got to find a provider that's got capacity, and that'll depend on where you're based, what sort of providers are around, and what you need. You know, some of the referrals I've seen for Commonwealth home support packages are like, here's a referral number, but they're at capacity, so don't bother contacting them. And I'm like, well, that's useless. You know, like let's not help them at all then. So it's probably, and that's why I sometimes say start early, because if you've got that package, it gives you time to find a provider, and you can stick with that provider. You might not necessarily be 100% comfortable with the provider, but something's better than nothing. You know,
start,
it's a start, absolutely. So they're probably that, and the other thing that I find is people leaving it too late. You know, we talked about sort of level 4. I sometimes call level 4 really, you're getting $64,000 worth of support. It's sometimes not enough to stay at home. It seems like a lot of money, but it's not enough to provide 24-hour care or anything like that as somebody would get in an aged care facility. So you're almost, to a certain degree, you might almost be 1 foot in, 1 foot out of aged care, and it could be very marginal, you know, but at least you've got the codes to get respite. And if you've got a partner, then they can get a break if they need it. You know, if the family need a break, hey, look, can we go through respite for a period of time, and see where we go.
Yeah, and so the packages can fund respite. Is that part of the?
Yes,
that's covered.
They'll give a referral code. And then what we in South Australia where I'm based, but we deal with clients wherever. Sometimes we get clients to contact Carers SA, and the Carers SA will fund some respite potentially. But the aged care facility will need a code. I see. The client will still pay some cost of care, but they're not going to pay the full cost of care, if that makes sense. So even though aged care in Australia can be expensive, we probably only fund 25% of the total cost of care. You know, generally we don't fund the whole amount unless unless they've got significant financial assets. Okay. And I mean, I think you know, God bless living in Australia, huh? Like, it's not perfect, but there's a pretty good safety net here. And so I suppose on that note, you know, if this is obviously an area you know a bit about, how can you help people with this and sort of, you know, the broader, some of the other things you've touched on today? Tell us a bit about that. Yeah, so look, we can definitely help with all all Centrelink pieces of work. So we deal with people, helping people with the home care package assessment, so getting them done.
Brilliant.
In terms of getting the financial side done, look, if people need a little bit of general help as to where do we start, what do we do, we can point them in the right direction. Generally, we say, look, if you're going to register for a home, you can do it in two ways. You can either jump online and do it online, and you can register for a family member, or you can pick up the phone. So we can point them in the right direction from there. But yeah, it's definitely the assessment paperwork in terms of the financial. And then if they don't have things like Commonwealth Seniors healthcare cards, or they need help with care allowance and bits and pieces, we can guide them through that whole process.
Fantastic.
To get it through. And then even when it comes to, if they get beyond that and need to go into aged care, then we'll help them with the financial side in terms of, hey, what paperwork do we need? How do we get it done? All those sorts of things when they go into aged care.
Yeah, sounds great. What a great service. Yeah, it's such a maze, such a minefield, the bureaucratic hoops we've got to jump through. I mean, I've seen some clients that early in life they've had issues with Centrelink. They might have been receiving some payment and it was overpaid, and we've all heard about the robo debt scandal. They're so emotionally scarred that they just can't face the thought of reapplying to get themselves onto what they're legally entitled to. So having someone out there that can hold their hand through this process is great. I think really good to be chatting to you, Kevin. And I guess on that note, where can people find you? Where can we send them?
Yeah, look, you can send them to our website, so it's pensionservices.com.au. The other one is the phone, 1300 025 521, or hello@pensionservices.com.au is the email address.
Okay.
And we can go from there.
Great. Do you want to just repeat the web and the phone number again? That'd be great.
Yeah, so phone number is 1300 025 521, and it's pensionservices.com.au.
Brilliant. Okay. Lovely chatting to you, Kevin. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Thanks, Simon.